Hey everybody, Dr. Greco here. Welcome to Ministry in a Minute. Listen, do me a favor. If you have any thoughts, comments, ideas about how we should be handling this ministry in a minute, or you need more information on the Crossroads School of Ministry, or you just want to talk shop, go ahead and comment down below. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to get your input on anything that we're doing at the Crossroads School of Ministry. We've spent this entire week talking about the Lordship of Christ. And what we said was the Lordship of Christ is important up front as Christians in general, but especially as leaders, because so many people focus on the salvation that comes from Jesus. But if you don't make him your boss, if you don't put him in charge of your life, you're not really fulfilling what the gospel, what the scriptures say we should do. But the beauty of that is that in that comes this motivation, this understanding that we need to live for Christ, and this power and creativity to do just that. And as Paul explains this to the Corinthians, he's explaining it in terms of legalism versus spirituality. Sometimes we do what we're supposed to do because we're afraid of God, and we should have a healthy fear of God, or because we're afraid of the outcome, or because we think we have to, and we do it begrudgingly. There's no joy, there's no power, there's no change in our lives or other people's lives. We're just going through the motions and following the rules, and there's no joy in that, okay? And what he says at the end of this section in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, he says, "Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall into sin, I will never eat meat again, so that I will not cause them to fall." He's giving this description. In Corinth at the time, there were lots of other religions. There were lots of other faiths. And one of the things you would do was sacrifice meat to them, just like the Jews, by the way. But then you would have a feast with that. And the Christians were saying, well, we can't eat that meat. And Paul was saying, sure you can, unless eating it causes the other person to think their religion is okay. So our actions are no longer about ourselves, but now our actions are all about how those actions reflect on Jesus, tie other people to Jesus. And what we see here is the power that comes with with the Lordship of Christ. The Lordship of Jesus is what leads to freedom. His Lordship is freedom. Now it's funny because in other places and in Corinthians, Paul describes it as slavery. We were slaves to sin, but now we're slaves to righteousness. We're slaves to Christ. But slavery to Christ is the same as freedom, because Christ is goodness and holiness and righteousness. And if you think about how that applies to ministry, it sets us free. It sets us free because all the things that we think are our responsibility. Sometimes I have people who love their family so much and they get so caught up. It's my job to minister to my family. It is. It is your job, but it's not your job to save your family. Only God can do that. And they have to make a decision to follow. It takes the pressure off of us. There is so much freedom in the Lordship of Christ. And that's the final point he makes here, is that we have the right to eat or not eat, and God will enable us to do both of those things in as much as we are letting it be about him and not about us. The Lordship of Christ, it leads to power, it leads to joy, it leads to creativity, and it leads to freedom. And it's a beautiful thing. Have a great weekend. We will see you next week on Ministry in a Minute, Crossroads School of Ministry.